Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers from the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Today, Union with the Divine, Part 1. In the early 1970s, I had the blessing of sending many flowers to the Mother. About 60 to 80 of them, and among the most precious and beautiful was the flower of basil, the large leaf variety with white flowers, whose botanical name is Ocimum basilicum. The Mother named it Joy of Union with the Divine. From the Mother. The force which, when absorbed in the ignorance, takes the form of vital desires, is the same which, in its pure form, constitutes the push, the dynamis towards transformation. Consequently, you must beware at the same time of indulging freely in desires, thinking them to be needs which must be satisfied, and of rejecting the vital force as positively evil. What you should do is throw the doors of your being wide open to the divine. The moment you conceal something, you step straight into falsehood. The least suppression on your part pulls you immediately down into unconsciousness. If you want to be fully conscious, be always in front of the truth. Completely open yourself and try your utmost to let it seep deep inside you, into every corner of your being. That alone will bring you into light and consciousness, and all that is most true. Be absolutely modest. That is to say, know the distance between what you are and what is to be. Not allowing the crude physical mentality to think that it knows when it does not, that it can judge when it cannot. Modesty implies the giving up of yourself to the divine wholeheartedly, and asking for help, and, by submission, winning the freedom and absence of responsibility which imparts to the mind utter quietness. Not otherwise can you hope to attain the union with the divine consciousness and the divine will. From Sri Aurobindo. If, on the other hand, the divine is transcendent but not incommunicable, the call will still be there, and the soul will leave the checkered cosmic play for the beatitude of the transcendent existence. But an absolute nirvana would not be indispensable. A beatific union with the divine offers itself as the way before the seeker. This is the reason why the cosmic consciousness is not sufficient, and the push away from it is so strong. It is only if the golden lid of the overmind is overpassed and opened, and the dynamic contact with the supermind and a descent of its light and power here is intended, that it can be otherwise. When one first realizes the Atman, one feels it separate from all things, existing in itself and detached. And it is to this realization that the image of the dry coconut fruit may apply. When one realizes the psychic being, it is not like that. For this brings the sense of union with the divine, and dependence upon it, and soul consecration to the divine alone, and the power to change the nature and discover the true mental, the true vital, the true physical being in oneself. Both realizations are necessary for this yoga. The aspiration of the psychic being would then translate this demand entirely for the opening of the whole lower nature, mind, vital, body, to the divine, for the love and union with the divine, for its presence and power within the heart, for the transformation of the mind, life, and body by the descent of the highest consciousness into the instrumental being and nature. Spiritual individuality is rather a vague term and might be variously interpreted. I have written about the psychic being that the psychic is the soul or spark of the divine fire supporting the individual evolution on the earth. And the psychic being is the soul consciousness developing itself, or rather its manifestation from life to life, with the mind, vital, and body as its instruments, until all is ready for the union with the divine. I don't know that I can add anything to that. There are always two different consciousnesses in the human being. One outward, in which he ordinarily lives, the other inward and concealed, of which he knows nothing. When one does sadhana, the inner consciousness begins to open, and one is able to go inside and have all kinds of experiences there. As the sadhana progresses, one begins to live more and more in this inner being, and the outer becomes more and more superficial. At first, the inner consciousness seems to be the dream, and the outer, the waking reality. Afterwards, the inner consciousness becomes the reality, and the outer is felt by many as a dream or delusion, or else as something superficial and external. The inner consciousness begins to be a place of deep peace, light, happiness, love, closeness to the divine, or the presence of the divine, the Mother. One is then aware of two consciousnesses, the inner one and the outer, which has to be changed into its counterpart and instrument, that also must become full of peace, light, union with the divine. At present you are moving between two, and in this period all the feelings you have are quite natural. You must not be at all conscious about that, but wait for the full development of the inner consciousness, in which you will be able to live. Namaste.